Elizabeth, do you want to do the honors of introducing our speaker? I know you've known him a lot longer than I've known him, but it's been a real pleasure.
I don't have any papers with his credentials, but he can maybe go into that. But he has been a great support to our chapter for many years. I know my daughter Rosa took classes from him and helped with the geology club, and got to know him quite well. And we've had lots of field trips with him, and there's always something more to learn and inspire us. And I'm very, very pleased he could come and take this time and talk with us. And we just look forward and pray that in the future we can get back out there and see all these places he'll tell us about tonight.
Thank you, Liz, and others for inviting me. I'm always happy to share a little bit of, knowledge on the geology and geologic history of the valley, which has become one of my preferred research topics. So if you've been to any of my talks, this is kind of pretty much the same. I only added a couple of new things. The title has been for a number of years now, New Insights into the Geologic History of the Lower Rio Grande Valley. And what I mean by that is specifically, I will be talking about a major geologic event that helped shape the valley into what it is and is responsible for a lot of the natural resources that we see in the area and for an amazing outcrop right next to us that few people know about. So if you listen to any of my talks before, this for the most part will be kind of the same, but that's all right. And if you have questions, please let Joseph know. He will communicate with me, and I'll be happy to stop, and that doesn't distract me to answer your questions. All right, so I always start with acknowledging the collaborators, my collaborators, both at UT-RGV, College of Sciences and College of Liberal Arts, collaborators from outside the university, and really an army of students that have over the years helped us do field work and process samples and run samples in the lab and whatnot. So I always start with this trivia question because it's very much related to the topic. What is the Texas State Rock? And if you don't know that, the answer is petrified palm. And this is an example of beautiful petrified palm that is, it's available. It's considered, it's very expensive to buy, and it's very rare now. And you see how colorful it is. It is informally known as palmoxylon. That might be the genus, but it's just petrified palm, period. And then kind of a complementary question is, what is the Louisiana state fossil? And the answer is the same thing. It's just petrified palm. And the reason for this is very much this geologic event that I will be mostly talking about that helped preserve all of these maritime forests and palm trees and other trees. And is responsible for having so much petrified wood in our area, as well as throughout the state of Texas, particularly where this geologic formation runs. So shortly after I arrived here, I started reviewing all articles on geology and newspaper articles, and I learned of this concept of a petrified forest in Starr County. And there are accounts of this that go back to the 1930s. In fact, our library has an old collection of photos of people digging these tree trunks, much like the ones here in the picture on the right. And that's a full-size person scale right there, an adult, for, to give you an idea of the size of these tree trunks. So the idea that there might have been a petrified forest in the Starr County at some point is a real one. I do for fun. What I do for fun is I go out looking for petrified wood myself. And these two pictures here were just taken last Saturday, where we had access to this one ranch, and between the five of us, we actually, you are not going to believe this, but we collected over 1,000 pounds of petrified wood. That's how much of this stuff is there. This is me, January of 2020, right before COVID hit. This is in near the city of Escobares. This is a little farther north of Rio Grande City. These two pieces here are about 35, 40 pounds each. So yeah, the evidence for the so-called Petrified Forest in Starr County and maybe even parts of Western Hidalgo County is there. Kind of a side story is I'm interested in geoarchaeology, and in particular, I'm interested on how earlier inhabitants of the Rio Grande Valley were using the natural resources in the area, particularly the lithic resources to make their stone tools. So this is just a picture of one of the tables when we look at collections and classify them. And one thing that became pretty clear to me very early on is that a lot of projectile points, arrowheads or dart points in the area were made from petrified wood. Those points right there are just a small selection of many that I extracted over the years to photograph, and they are all made of petrified wood. So unrelated to the main story of the talk, which is this geologic event, is the fact that I started looking at points as an idea for a project, and I noticed, wow, there is a lot of petrified wood here for making these points. And little I knew then that the petrified wood and that event that I've been talking about were kind of connected, right? Very much part of the story is, and you are all aware of this, that we have for about 60 years mines, uranium mines that are extracted, and every time you see one of these symbols, that's where the uranium mines are. And those uranium mines are today located on the Goliath Formation, and then, which is a geologic formation, and then to the west of that is this unit here, which is the Miocene, Oligocene, Catahoula Formation of Catahoula Tuff. The reason why I talk about uranium is because you would normally not find uranium in sedimentary rocks, much like the Goliath is, which is sandstone, conglomerate, and limestone. So the source for that uranium has to be somewhere else, and it so happens that it migrates through groundwater from that formation right there, the Catahoula, which is where this major geologic event is located. So uranium in our area originates from this geologic event, and uranium has been mined in South Texas for about 60 years now, or maybe even longer. Okay, so the story really starts back in time. I'm now kind of focusing on the story. It starts in a time period in Earth's history known as the Oligocene. This is the Oligocene epoch, and the timing is about 28 billion years ago. The map that you are seeing there is a paleogeographic map of what North America looked like back then, which is not quite the way it does. Not only the arrangement of the continent was different, but sea level was different than what it is today. For instance, you see that Hudson Bay, which is barely outlined right there, is still above water. Greenland is still connected to North America, and there is no passage here, right? The present day shoreline for North America is barely visible, but it's shown there, right? And this arrow points to that location right there, which is where the shoreline was back in the Oligocene 28 million years ago in our part of the world, which is the same as saying, it's hard to tell from the scale of this map, but it's the same as saying the shoreline back then was farther inland or farther west than what it is today, right? And if you position yourself in present-day Rio Grande City, which is kind of where this map or that arrow is pointing at, that's kind of where the shoreline was at the time, you still had about 60 miles of land before you get to the present-day shoreline, right? So a very different configuration of the Gulf Coast. Although the Gulf kind of looks the same, the shoreline was much farther inland. Let's go with 60 miles, okay? And this shoreline clearly had a maritime forest with palm trees and probably plenty of Oligocene age animals, mammals, and big animals living there. And then suddenly, shortly after that, shortly after 28 million years ago, a large volume of volcanic ash falls in the area. And I don't really have a good analogy to show you because what happened here locally is not really comparable to any historically documented through photographs or videos volcanic eruption, right? It's just not on the same scale, but envision a large volume of ash following on the land, covering what was probably a coastal setting, much like the one shown here with palm trees growing, right? A barrier island, possibly a lagoon or tidal and estuarine channels, a lot of palms here in a flat coastal setting. So this major geologic event, which is, again, a large volume of ash raining down on the land surface in a very short period of time, basically changed the landscape permanently. And it clearly, in my mind, changed life for whatever organisms were living out there, big animals, as I said, and it changed the geology and the landscape and the configuration of the shoreline. Okay, so this was a major event. I want you to visualize this as a major volcanic eruption. This is a common picture that is shown when people look at Mount St. Helens 1980 eruption, which I imagine most of you have fresh in your memory, right? This was a very moderate volcanic eruption. In fact, the volume of volcanic ash produced during that eruption is basically a quarter of a cubic mile, which is represented by that small cube right there, right? On the other end of this chart are a couple of major volcanic eruptions associated to the Yellowstone caldera that produce on the order of 600 cubic miles of volcanic ash, the first Yellowstone caldera eruption, or about 240 cubic miles, right? The yellow cube here for the so-called third caldera eruption, right? So I bring this picture because I don't want you to think of that volcanic eruption as this. This is a pretty average in size, or perhaps even very small volcanic eruption associated to St. Helens. What happened here on the Gulf Coast in Starr County and near Rio Grande City about 27 million years ago is something more on the order of this green cube here, which is about 67 cubic miles. I have done some quick calculations, probably not very approximate, trying to estimate the volume, and I came up with somewhere between 60 and 80. So it's not Mount St. Helens by any stretch, it's not Yellowstone caldera type of eruptions, it's maybe more like the second Yellowstone caldera eruption, something on the order of 67 cubic miles of just volcanic ash, okay? Now, how fast did that accumulate on land, on the landscape here? That is an open question. I don't really have an answer, but the more we think about this, the more we realize it could not have taken very long. This is the main outcrop that I always go on field trips and on my own when I get a chance, because it shows you from road level where the person is standing, that's the street right there. It basically shows you 17 meters of uninterrupted volcanic ash. Even this yellow deposit here near the top is oxidized volcanic ash. And I like to show the picture to argue that the deposition of this could not have taken years or tens of years. It probably happened in a matter of weeks to a few months. And the reason for that is we don't see any interruptions, any gaps, right? It's just a massive accumulation of ash. Now, we try to estimate the total thickness of this, and we need to know how much is buried beneath our field right there. So this is the person standing there at right street level. This is Juan Gonzalez, one of the students that help us with the dating of the volcanic ash. And we write ground penetrating radar, which is a technique to use to map the subsurface and see what's buried beneath the top, the top layer of the earth. And we came up with about 3 meters. So everything that you see here indicated as black is basically transparent to signal of the ground penetrating radar, and it only begins changing here. This is at about 3 meters below the surface. So everything here is about the same composition as what you see. And what that gives you is 3 plus 17 is a total of 20 meters of ash that fell on the landscape, covering everything, preparing the landscape and the maritime forest and the palm trees in, for all purposes, what I call a geologic instant, something that could not have lasted more than, a couple of weeks to a couple of months is how I see it, right? So if you have not been there, this outcrop is very easy to access. It's right next to Highway 83. It's in front of everyone, and it's right there for you to see and touch the ash, right? So it's one of the places we go on field trips when we can do it. All right. So in more detail, here is the top of the ash. These are just the students from a field trip. So the top of the ash is indicated by this line right there. The unit on top, I have shown you the geologic map earlier with the uranium mines, that's the Goliath Formation, which is a gravel. It's a gravelly, a conglomerate deposit that was deposited by a high energy river, perhaps a river with a steeper gradient that rivers that the Rio Grande has today, for instance. And given how different these deposits are, the conglomerate here, which indicates high energy moving water, on top of this much finer grain volcanic ash, it's probably safe to say that it probably eroded a portion of the volcanic ash. In fact, we have evidence for this because when we look in detail at the conglomerate, at the Goliath, we see clasts or rip-up clasts, as they are called, of the volcanic ash embedded at some elevation above that contact within the gravel. So this was an erosional event that shaved some amount of ash as the gravels were being deposited, right? And this here, that gap or that geologic contact basically represents what we call in geology an unconformity. An unconformity is a gap in the rock record in which we don't have any rocks to tell us what was going on. So unconformities are produced most commonly by erosion, which I think is the case here. Right after the ash was deposited, sometime later, millions of years later, here came this river that shaved the ash and produced that deposit, right? The other way unconformities are produced is when you don't have any sediments being deposited. I don't think that is the case here. But anyway, you're looking here at the top, about 5 meters of the ash that we saw in the previous picture. Here is the bottom portion of the ash. This is not far from that outcrop. In fact, that's on the way to Rio Grande City. Highway 83 is just behind the tree line right there, right? This here is the Arroyo Los Olmos, which crosses Highway 83. And this brown or red unit is the next formation below, which is the Frio Formation. It's a marine clay, right? So the bottom of the ash is represented here by this kind of vertical scarp that is hidden by those trees right there. That is about 3 to 4 meters in places at this location, right? Here the ash is not as white. It is mixed with clay and other things, so it's not as reflected and as striking as in the previous two pictures, but it is still ash, and it rests on the Frio, which is this brown unit here, right? So what I want you to realize is this Frio formation is a marine clay. It has marine fossils, marine planktonic, as well as invertebrates. And what I want you to visualize is that this volcanic ash fell in the area when the area was really close to the shoreline. Let me pause here. Are there any questions at this point? Yes.
Yeah, we got a couple in chat. Elizabeth asked if when they went on a field trip to Falcon Lake and they saw fossilized oyster shells, would that be about this same time period?
No, that's older. That's a good question, Elizabeth. We're talking about something on 27, 28 million years. I will give you the exact age here in a minute. By the time you make it that far west into Zapata County and Falcon Dam, you are into the Eocene. So those oyster reefs and remnants of those oysters that you see there are about 44, 40 42 million years old. So it's a little older. And it's a different world than this. None of these rocks that you see here, by that I mean the Frio or the volcanic ash had been deposited when those reefs were active. The shoreline was even farther west.
Okay, and we also have Wendy Williams asked, does UTRGV have GPR, ground penetrating radar, or they borrowed it?
No, we have a ground penetrating radar. That was images that we collected with one student. Yes, Wendy, we have.
And Bill's asking, do we know where the caldera is?
We'll get to that in a minute, at least to speculate as to where that caldera might be. I don't have an exact answer, but I have a suspicion, and I will get there here in 5 minutes.
Okay, that's all the questions we got for now.
All right. So I have shown you a full picture of the outcrop, the top portion with the gravel on top and the unconformity, the bottom portion of the ash. Everything is kind of in the vicinity of Rio Grande City. Again, all of this here is ash, and the contact between the Frio and the ash will be somewhere behind those trees where the cursor is right now. Okay. All right. So the outcrops that I've shown you in the past 3 pictures are located right here. This is Falcon Dam. This is the Rio Grande City. North is not to the top here, but it's rather to the left. So north is right there. So let me show you where there are other outcrops of this Catahoula Ash, which is part of the Catahoula Formation. This is one of the members. So the next picture I will show you is 100 kilometers to the north in that portion right there. That's Starr County. And then the following picture after that would be near Three Rivers and Chalk Canyon. In fact, it's close to where the rest area is on Highway 37 as you are driving into San Antonio, right? Which is another 180 kilometers from Jim Hall. Okay, so just showing you 3 pictures there. This would be the next picture. In fact, you can see the white right there. One of these white areas, that Catahoula Volcanic Ash. And then the next picture will be just a little bit to the north of Three Rivers. So that's kind of eyeballing the contact of the width of the volcanic ash, just based on Google Earth colors and imagery. So this is the outcrop, right? The red unit here is the same marine clay, the Frio Formation. The white unit that you see all the way to the top of that hill and even on the other side of the road where the wind turbines are is the Catahoula Ash. And at this outcrop in Jim Hall is also about 20 meters thick. So it didn't change much. And you can see how the lower contact of the ash here is not sharp. It's kind of gradational and it's mixed, because I suspect that at this location, the ash fell in an aqueous environment, perhaps an estuary or a coastal lagoon or something that was marine. Remember that this red clay here has marine fossils, has marine planktonic. So at this location, at least, that ash fell in a aqueous environment, and ultimately it filled that embayment or whatever it was, and it became just like a subaerial deposition of ash. The next outcrop is near Three Rivers, and this outcrop is visible from the highway as you drive. And here you have 7 meters of that ash, and I have not been able to really estimate how much is buried below street level right there, but I suspect is at least that much more. So this is not an insignificant event. So if you allow me to go back, that's Rio Grande City, Jim Hall, the previous picture, and this, and in all 3 areas, the thickness of this ash is about 20 meters. In fact, when we look into Mexico south, the Rio Grande River there, and I don't have pictures there, I have not been able to visit, we estimate that the ash continues into Mexico for another 40 or 50 kilometers. So I wouldn't be surprised if it is that thick there. So here is the trend of the Catahoula. I just took it out, the geologic map, and already posted in this geographic map here, right? That's the outcrop I show you right there. This is the one in Rio Grande City. And all of this to show you these planktonic organisms that we found by sieving through the clay, to the Frio clay, and even the base of the volcanic ash is mixed with planktonic organisms much like this. These are very tiny. These are scanned in electron microscope, and both of those images are enlarged about 2,000, 3,000 times. So they are really small, not visible with a good optical microscope. You need scanning electron microscope to be able to see this. So the Catahoula Arch here kind of parallels the present day Gulf Coast. You see how it curves along the shoreline. That was the Catahoula at that time, and the Catahoula Arch, which is part of the Catahoula Formation, was in an early coastal setting. Okay. Here is a simplified geologic map. The Catahoula Formation is this darker red here, is what I show you. By the time you get into the Texas-Louisiana border, it changes colors in this map, but that's that purple unit, Catahoula. Then you go into the Mississippi embayment, and it continues into Mississippi and Alabama, and it pretty much parallels the shoreline everywhere. The Catahoula is about 900 to 1,800 meters thick, depending on where you are. The main rocks are sandstone, mudstone, and conglomerates, and it's mixed with a bunch of volcanic ashes, not just one, but there are many ashes. It just so happens that here in our area, South Texas, it is capped with that 20 meters of ash that I show you, and we call it a rhyolitic ash, a rhyolitic type of magma because of the color. Rhyolitic magmas are very explosive. They are very viscous. They don't flow readily. They actually they don't flow. So when pressure builds in the caldera, it produces a violent eruption. And like the Kilauea or some of the volcanoes in Central America that produce these rivers of molten lava. That's not the type of caldera that we have here. This is much more violent, and that's what rhyolitic magmas do. They produce very violent explosions. So keep in mind that the Cenozoic, by that I mean the last roughly 65 million years of Earth's history, which are basically represented here from about that formation all the way to the present day shoreline, all of that package parallels the shoreline. And this is a time when sea level globally was dropping from an all-time high that basically brought the shoreline as far inland as Memphis when you are in Louisiana, right? For reference, just so that you know. So Cenozoic strata, including the Catahoula Formation, parallels the present day shoreline. And furthermore, to give you an idea of how things are arranged in the subsurface, well, when you go from, say, South Padre all the way to Falcon or Rio Grande or Roma, right? As you go farther west, the rocks and the formations get progressively older. And the reason for this is because they are not arranged flat and horizontal on top of each other, but rather they have a tilt, much like is shown here. This is greatly exaggerated on this cross section. This is the shoreline of the Gulf of Mexico. I think that mission is somewhere around here, right? But the point is, all of those formations, every one of these units here is tilted about 5 degrees to the Gulf. This is why when you travel west, the rocks get progressively younger. If they were all nice, flat, and horizontal, you would be on the same unit all the way from the Gulf of Mexico inland to Roma or Falcon down, right? So keep in mind that down at depth, there is this depositional tilt where the rocks are tilted towards the Gulf by about that much. Just some recent images. These are Google images of what volcanic ash looks under the microscope. Very abrasive, right? These are only 30 microns across. For reference, the thickness of a human hair is about 20 microns, so these are clearly very tiny. But this is what volcanic ash looks under the microscope. The magnification here is 900 times here, 1200 times here. Very, very tiny and very abrasive. So the first question, we've been taking students to these outcrops that I show you for several years, and we tell them, well, we don't really know how old the ash is, but we suspect it is between 27 or 25 and 30 million years, right? But we wanted to be certain of that, so we extracted some zircons. Zircons are these really tiny crystals again. This is 20 microns here, the thickness of a human hair, so they are just barely thicker than that. This requires a lot of microscope, tedious work extracting the zircons. The zircons are produced in the caldera during the volcanic eruption, and they get transported with the ash when it gets thrown into the atmosphere. And then at some point, the ash cools down some and it rains down on the Earth's surface, and with it, it brings the zircons with them. Okay, so the way to obtain an absolute numerical age for this deposit is you obtain zircons and you measure the ratio of uranium and lead using uranium lead dating, and you obtain that numerical age. So these are some of the zircons we actually extracted. These are our own images produced here at UT RGV. We did this, the first zircons that we dated and photographed were extracted in 2015. Question, I see the hand is up.
Yeah, Wendy was asking, this volcanic glass is now changed into clays at this point?
Correct. That is
And
totally valid, Wendy. It has completely chemically altered into Montmorillonite clay. The ash is, the glass is a volcanic glass, which is what the ash is originally, has completely weathered. The products today are completely different, but nonetheless, the parent material was volcanic ash, and we know that without any doubt. Yes.
And she also said, are the zircons within the altered ash or the bracketing strata?
No, I can answer that by going back a few slides. So if you let me do that.
It's Wendy. I'm just not that familiar with the surrounding strata, and I was wondering, is it host rock that got blasted up and out with this? Can't find the center volcano, or you really think it was part of the original volcanic ash eruption magma zircons?
Yes, very much so. So this is Eli. This is the person who helped us extract. We have taken like 3 rounds of zircons for dating. So what Eli did was he went right there where the cursor is, and we sampled that ash about 2 meters from road level, right, which is about 5 meters from the base of the ash, where it is relatively fresh, it's not mixed, it's unaltered, and this is the material that we use to extract the zircons.
Okay, thank you.
Did I fully answer your question, Wendy?
Enough for this audience, and at some point I look forward to talking more about it. Thank you.
All right.
I'm a volcanologist by training, so it's just, you got my ear.
All right, good deal. Okay, so the question was, we needed to do better than basically telling the students how old is it. So we extracted zircons. We sent them to 2 different labs with collaborators that I acknowledged at the beginning. One at UCLA, the other one at University of Houston. And these are the ages that we obtained. So we have the ratio of lead to uranium here on the x-axis, lead 207 to uranium 235. Here we have lead 206 to uranium 238. And in theory, that line right there is where the ages should come, right? And each one of those ellipses is a measurement, right? So where the ellipses overlap, and again, we did this with 16 zircon crystals, so 16 measurements for the lab at UCLA, where the ellipses overlap, that's where your age is. So we've been telling the students that the volcanic eruption took place sometime between 25 and 30 million years. The age that we obtained is that little ellipse, which is very tightly constrained, and that's 30, 29, 28, 27.2. 27 million years, 27.2 million years, plus or minus 400,000 years, okay? So this is based on, I'm sorry, I said 16, it's 12 measurements. And now we're pretty confident that we have constrained the age of the ash. The other measurement from University of Houston is not that different. It gave us 27.4, which is very reassuring. So the exact timing of the eruption, we have it very well constrained. and it's 27 million times, 27 million years, which is back in the Oligocene. So going back to this picture, we now can go there on field trips, and we tell the students, this is the Catahoula Volcanic Ash with its age. The unit on top is the Goliath Formation. No one really knows the exact age of the Goliath. It ranges between 5 and 15 million years. It has not been dating very well because of how hard it is, right? It doesn't have any fossils. So it is estimated to be somewhere in there. So now we can say that that unconformity right there represents a gap in the rock record that could be as large as 22 million years or could be about 15 million years, depending on the age of the Goliath. So that red line right there is the unconformity. And by going from the ash to the Goliath, we have anywhere between 22 or 15 million years missing, where there is no geologic record. Okay. All right. We also run some X-ray diffraction on the actual ash. This is the typical output of the X-ray diffraction. So each one of these peaks represents a mineral. This here is your feldspar. This larger blue peak is quartz. This is calcite. So both feldspar and quartz are typical of rhyolitic magmas, right? The calcite is not typical of the magma, but is rather the product of weathering in South Texas. Once the climate turned arid and drier and we had more evaporation than rain, you start bringing groundwater to the surface and you start precipitating things like calcite and sulfates and gypsum and various minerals. So this very large peak is the cement that is holding the ash in place, but we have the quartz that is typical of a rhyolite and the feldspar. And then we have this little clay peak here, which is that mold-morillonite clay, which is what really the bulk of those outcrops that I've been showing you is today. All the ash, all the minerals, all the glasses that were there have for the most part weathered, except quartz and feldspar that are a little more resistant. And they have turned into clay, specifically mold-morillonite clay. All right, so to go back to the question that I forgot who asked the question a couple of minutes ago.
It was Wendy.
No,
And-
that wasn't Wendy, that was somebody else.
Oh, the caldera?
The
Want to know
caldera.
about the caldera? Yeah, he
Where
did.
is the caldera
Yeah.
located? Well, we look into this extensively because a lot has been published on volcanic eruptions that date back to that time. There are various options, including some here in the US, in New Mexico, but our most likely candidate is found somewhere within the Sierra Madre Occidental in Mexico, somewhere within that red ellipse right there. And the reason why we suspect this is a time in Earth's history when the Sierra Madre was very active tectonically and volcanically. There is no one, but multiple calderas there that could be candidates that are known to have produced major volcanic eruptions roughly of the same age as ours. So we discard candidates from New Mexico and Yellowstone and maybe even the Big Bend area. We think that most likely the ash came from somewhere in the Sierra Madres, which is still about 500 kilometers to the west of where we are. So the caldera blows its top, puts ash in the atmosphere for days to weeks. Those get transported by the prevailing wind, and somewhere in our area, or this shoreline at the time, the Gulf of Mexico, it falls in a coastal setting and it accumulates. Okay, this is a very old map from a paper, but what I want to show you is these black dots are calderas that are known to have produced volcanic eruptions in the 35 to 27 million years, right? So the paleogeography at the time is different. This is Baja California here, that's Mazatlan, Guadalajara is right there. And any one of these is a likely candidate for our Catahoula volcanic ash. We are not as actively looking to fingerprint or to actually find that caldera because it would be very challenging, but we are we are pretty convinced that it is the Sierra Madre Occidental where the ash came from. In fact, when you look at the large igneous provinces of the planet, and I want you to look at anything colored in yellow. These are the silicic large igneous province. That's what this LIP stands for. Well, there is this area here in northeastern Australia, this here in South America, and look at the Sierra Madre, right? The Sierra Madre, it's the largest silicic igneous province in the planet. And most of the activity took place between 38 and 20 million years ago, right? So very good chance that that's where it came from. The other colors in this map are different types of rocks, and we don't need to worry about those now. These are just a lot of interest for our story, the sourcing of the Catahoula Volcanic Ash, okay? So let me pause here. Did I more or less answer the question on the sourcing, or? That's the best we can do, but are there any questions on this? Okay, I see Wendy.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is Elizabeth. I think you may have said something before, but are there any areas across the Rio in Mexico that have similar ash with similar qualities, I guess chemical or other qualities to that which we have here in Starr County?
Yes, Elizabeth. I always make the comment because we are not allowed to travel to Mexico by the university for research purposes because of the unrest and the violence there. But if we could, we will be going there. What we have done is we talk to students who own land there and who have traveled there, and we look at it in Google Earth imagery, and we can trace the ash for about 50 kilometers south of the river. So it really continues farther south.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so with that, let me change topics now, switch gears to another story. So I mentioned that when I arrived here in 2009, I have this natural interest on geoarchaeology. So I started looking at collections of projectile points. And in doing so, I got connected with collectors and avocational archaeologists and others who have been doing this for, since the 1960s and 70s. And what became very clear at the time is that there is this very colorful rock that was used in prehistory for making stone tools. That rock is known as a Sauz chert. And I have this asterisk here to remind me that I need to elaborate on what chert is. Chert is a fine-grained silica-rich, quartz-rich rock that is the preferred raw material in prehistory everywhere in the world for making stone tools. There is a lot of chert in our area. It's not just this Sauz chert, but all the local gravels in the Goliath Formation, and the river terraces adjacent to the Rio Grande have a lot of chert. So there is a lot of that. But this chert caught the attention of collectors and as well as my own attention because the patterns and the colorations are different from anything that I have seen, right? So we became interested in this. It turns out, and I didn't know this, that the outcrop where the El Sauz chert is that red dot right there. So this is Highway 83. This is the location of the main ash outcrop that I showed you picture, the 20-meter thick one, right? The blue lines are more or less the width of the volcanic ash. You see how wide the soils are here and everywhere. This is where the ash is. And then, not knowing, I went and visited the outcrop with some people who had identified it years ago. And much to my surprise, is surrounded by ash everywhere, right? So I immediately suspected, well, the formation of this chert is associated to the ash. They have to be genetically related because it forms two little outcrops. In fact, it's just this little hill right there where it's two of them actually. This picture that I'm showing you here is taken from the other one. So they form these very low hills. This is what the Sauz chert looks like, very massive, very hard, Here is another picture. This is the student that we were working with at the time, Freddie, Mr. Villarreal, who owns the ranch there, and a good friend, Nick, who is an avocational and archaeologist. So this is what the Sauz chert looks like, really in the middle of nowhere. And it turns out that when you walk around the main outcrops, the area is covered with fragments and debitage and other stuff that Native Americans left behind when they went there to mine this to make stone tools. In fact, these rocks, which do not occur in the area, are the prehistoric hammer stones that Native Americans were using to break this, to take cores with them and to make tools, right? So El Sauz chert has a very restricted source. It's just these two small hills, about 15, 16 miles north of Rio Grande City. And apparently it had been visited in prehistory. I think I said in my earlier slide here that the oldest points date back to the early Archaic, which is this point right here, the Hidalgo point, right? That is dated to the early Archaic, about 4,000 to 6,000 BC, which would make the point, if you add another 2,000 years, anywhere between 6,000 and 8,000 years old. Okay, so Native Americans, is the point I'm trying to make, we're fully aware of this chert and the high quality it is for making stone tools, right? So as early as 8,000 years ago, perhaps they were visiting it to extract materials to now. Okay, here is just a simple representation of how we think it's formed. Basically, this here represents the ash. The ashy here kind of turning into kind of a sandstone kind of looking thing. The pink here is the actual chert, and the contact is just gradational over a distance of just a meter. You go from the ash that you see here into the chert. And the outcrop is no more than 5 to 7 meters thick, and it's about 50 meters across, so it's very restricted, very small. The blue lines here, I use them to represent groundwater. What I think that happens is groundwater over millions of years dissolve the silica, remobilize it, and deposit it elsewhere in the form of chert, which is the rock of interest here. So groundwater very much involved in depositing this silica. We look at the various properties of this chert. One unique property that it has is that it fluoresces when it is exposed under UV, shortwave UV light. The fluorescence is bright green or yellow, much like you see here or here. It's not the entire piece, but rather those small veins, which are filled with uranium-rich minerals. They fluoresce brightly when exposed to shortwave ultraviolet light. We also look at the chert under the polarized microscope, and it has some very interesting textures. Everything you see here is quartz. Magnification is about 40 times, and it has this very distinctive, it's kind of like, I call it the woodpecker feather type of texture, because I haven't seen anything like it in any other chert. This is more typical of what quartz looks like in other cherts, but this is very unusual. This is a thin section is what you do when you cut a rock to about the thickness of a piece of paper, and you put it under the microscope and look at it in polarized light. It gives you a very unique view of the minerals. And this is how you basically identify the mineralogy and reconstruct the history of rocks, right? We look at the high magnification. The magnification here is about almost 11,000 times. You find some very interesting textures and structures. And then, given how restricted this chert is, it really presents a unique opportunity for archaeologists to see how far this chert has traveled, right? Native Americans were aware of it. They were going there. They were extracting it. They were making stone tools, and they were going their way, hunting and living and trading. So we became very interested in trying to produce a fingerprint of a Sauz chert that will allow us to use it, to use the fingerprint to basically in the future recognize a point that is made from a Sauz chert that might be found in North Texas, in Oklahoma, in Central Texas, or in Louisiana, or into Mexico somewhere. So what we did is we went to the outcrops and we collected samples. These are our own samples. In all, I think it's close to 200 of them. The analytical technique that we use is called Xray Fluorescence, which is this device here. And what you do is you put the sample there, it shoots an X-ray, and depending on the composition of the sample, it bounces back with some energy, and a detector inside the gun, we call this the gun, will tell you what the composition of this material is. You can use this for alloys and metals, glasses, rocks, ceramics, pigments, right? All kinds of uses for X-ray fluorescence. So we use it and we run it on all 200 and so samples of the Sauz chert that we collected. And the one thing that we observed is that every one of those had a zirconium peak. Zirconium is an element in the periodic table. It's this peak right here. And it also had a titanium peak, which is this here. What you are seeing is a typical fluorescence spectrograph of a rock made of silica, which includes kind of this here and this area going up, right? What is unusual is that zirconium and titanium are not found in other kinds of cherts. And every one of the nearly 200 measurements that we made, and it's now more by now, we continue to measure this, had high zirconium and high titanium. And this gave us hope that we could come up with a fingerprint. So here are the samples some of the samples that we measured. This plot here is for zirconium. The units here on the y-axis are counts. Counts meaning we cannot tell the proportion of the quantity, like what percentage of it is zirconium. We just not go by the counts. So, these are the samples that we use. Then we tested our own measurement by looking at collections of arrowheads, right? So both the zirconium and the titanium only apply to the arrowheads that we measured, right? And notice that at some point it abruptly drops here, right? And these are points. These are 0.6, 0.8, 0.10, and so on. Right, 99 is this white chert right here, right? So the point I want to make is, in a random collection of points, all made out of chert, we tested the sample and we came up with a clear signature. The method really works. Wherever we have high zirconium, high titanium, we know we are looking at Sauz. Wherever we don't have any zirconium or any titanium other than that little peak right there, which is this point, at this point for the titanium, we know those are not made from Sauz, right? So very powerful fingerprint. In fact, we went further and we compared Sauz not just to arrowheads, but to other cherts in collections that we have. The Allivates is a famous chert in North Texas, as is the Knife River, a chert called from Oman. A lot are our local gravels, and the red dots are all El Sauz. So this plot basically shows a normalization of zirconium to rhenium. Rhenium is the source of the X-ray, but you can really normalize this to any other element, right? We were encouraged to use rhenium because that's the source of the X-ray, but it could be silica, it could be strontium, it could be any other thing. So the x-axis is basically zirconium, the y-axis is titanium, and you see how nicely tied that the Sauz chert measurements fall. This is nearly 800 measurements. All the other measurements are here, but I have to tell you, these are logarithmic axes, both the x and y. So the majority of the measurements that we made do not have enough zirconium or titanium in them to be detected by the instrument. So they fall below this axis here or below this axis, and it's not measurable. So I would argue, based on what we learned, that this is another test. We tested this against nearly 1,000 projectile points, right? the various colors here are collections of projectile points. This is Museum of South Texas History 1, Museum of South Texas History 2, and the TSU samples in yellow, right? I would argue that based on this and this test, that any sample that falls within that circle is made from Sauz chert. Very powerful fingerprint. And I suspect that we will continue to learn more as we look at other collections, which is kind of the way we're doing this now. We're going to San Marcos to look at other collections that we know are local and reside in a museum there. So we recently looked at how important the Sauz chert was to the early inhabitants of the Rio Grande by looking at roughly the 1,000 points that we had access to from well-sourced collections in the museums. And this portion of the pie here is El Sauz chert. So about 5% out of nearly 1,000 points that we observed are made of Sauz. Not insignificant, consider how restricted those outcrops are. This was published in our own paper 2 years ago now, right? All right, so one unexpected result of this is that by going through these collections, we found the Golondrina type point, which is this point here. This is a poster that Texas DOT puts together, Department of Transportation, for the Paleo-Indian points that they have found over the years. The Golondrina's point is estimated to be between 10 and nearly 11,000 years old. Why is it significant? Because in going through those collections, we found one Golondrina's whole point and two other broken points. Look at the little tail right there. This is where the Golondrina, the name, the point takes the name because of the lower part of the point. Sure enough, we measured them and they were made of a Sauz chert. The implication of this is that now we can extend the range of when these two quarries were being used in prehistory, and we suspect that it's not 8,000 years anymore. Early inhabitants of the Rio Grande were already aware of this back in Paleo-Indian 10 or 11,000 years ago when these points were made, right? So that was unexpected, and it's kind of cool. And all of these points look the same to the eye, right? Which points were made from Sauz chert? Well, it's hard to tell just by looking at them, but if you have an Xray fluorescence equipment or tool, only those two have the high zirconium, high titanium. They look pretty much the same, but yet those are the only two that have the high zirconium, high titanium, and these are all points found here in the 4 southernmost counties. All right, if you have, I'm kind of wrapping it up. I just have 2 announcements. If you have any projectile points from South Texas, let us know. We're always interested in expanding our knowledge on this and making new measurements. And we kind of learn things by kind of spreading the word and asking people to share what they have in terms of their collections. So that's our contact information. I also want to bring to your attention a book that just came out, that we put it together in the CHAPS program here at UT-RGV. It's called The Ancient Landscapes of South Texas, that features, as you can see here on the S, that's the outcrop that I show you, and this here is the Sauz chert. So this book is basically a coffee table type of book. It's just pictures and a little bit of reading and information that highlights unknown geology, geoarchaeology, and historical things here in the Rio Grande Valley. And we call it Ancient Landscapes of South Texas, Hiding in Plain Sight. I'll be happy to share information with you on how to purchase this. It's just, just promotional material. Book is just full of pictures, a lot of arrowheads and petrified wood and other things. So with that, I will stop talking, and if there are any questions, I'll be happy to.
Elizabeth asks, can you scroll back to your contact info so people can write that down if they want?
Okay, let me see if I can share again.
We can see it if you just pick the slide before.
Okay, yeah, that's right. It's not letting me. It's very strange. So there you go.
There we go.
So that's my email. This is Ross's email, and this is our office. This is Community Historical Archaeology Programs with the school. That's our office phone number.
And Dr. Gonzalez, in not April but May, we'll be having a presentation by chaps by oh, my brain. What's her name?
Right, Roseanne, right?
Roseanne,
Yes.
mhm.
Yeah, she'll be doing a presentation for us. I saw her at the powwow and twisted her arm.
Good deal. I'm sure she will tell you more about the book. We're trying to promote this book because, well, we find, and you probably experience some of this anyway, is that few people know about some of these major, geologic features right next to the major highways. So
Wendy, you want to ask him your questions?
Yeah, Juan, this is just so cool.
oh,
I
thank you.
really don't know a lot about geoarchaeology, but I'm curious about those points where you saw the fluorescence of uranium in them. How
Yes.
common is that to find in points just outside of the valley? I'm wondering if you, your colleagues, can now use that information to see if there's any trading going on between communities outside of the valley for these points, and that we might find these points in other collections and they
Oh.
have that uranium kind of fingerprint to them.
I am convinced that this house traveled extensively. Imagine a quarry that was used for 10 or 11,000 years, right? How far
Mhm.
these points went. So I'm convinced that it's just a matter of time before we find those points. In fact, the bulk of those points are now kind of the average grade that I show you. But the reality is that the colorful ones that really catch it to the eye are long gone. They disappeared. They were traded back in the 60s and 70s, and they are in private collections somewhere. But
Oh, well, I mean traded amongst the indigenous peoples.
I know.
Oh, okay. I want to make sure I was clear.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
it was totally clear. It's just that the most colorful ones, which were attractive to Native Americans as well,
Hmm.
they have disappeared from the area. They are in private collections, and if the colors, the colorations, and the textures are so unique that if it was all colorful, it's Sauz chert wherever you find it. The thing is, the colorful points and rocks that we collected are only about 10 or 15% of the outcrop. Most of it is average grade, so we really need a fingerprint.
Yeah. Well, very cool.
Are there
Question,
any
Dr.
other
Gonzalez.
questions?
I've got a question. You had high titanium in the chert, and it's a light metal, and we see it on our beaches. Does that mean there's some oceanic interaction up there when it was formed, or?
No, Tony, it's not. No, it has nothing to do. In fact, titanium is very rare, and the minerals, if I understand what you are saying, you mean like those black sands that you find on some beaches?
Yes.
No, that's other minerals. That's not titanium. If it was titanium, I would have retired by now because I collected a lot of that over the years, and titanium is very, very expensive. So,
He might
no
be thinking of the
connection.
magnetite sands.
Yeah, those magnetic sands, ilmenite and chromite and other, other heavy sands. The source of the titanium and the zirconium is the ash and the volcanic eruption.
Okay, and on Facebook, we're asking, can you explain where we can find your book?
Yeah, I'll be happy to share this information with you, Joseph, and you can find it. This is a kind of self-published and is ordered on demand. So the publisher is lulu.com. They are based in North Carolina. And if you search ancient landscapes, you might be able to order it. I mean, we just got this delivered not even 2 weeks ago, so it's brand new. But I'll be happy to give you more details on how to order it if anyone is interested.
Elizabeth's asking, do chaps have copies of the book available locally, or will they?
We will have a few, yes. We will have a few locally.
Okay, I'll look for it, and if I find it, I'll put it in chat. And if you've later, and you can email it to me so if I can't find it, and I'll pass it
Yes,
on to everybody.
I'll be happy to do that. No problem.
And oh, somebody was asking, can you go back to the outcrops, the slide showing the locations of the outcrops? I said it so you can share again.
Can you see it now or no? I have to share it, right?
Yeah, you have to hit share again.
There you go. You mean like this picture?
She was saying the location of the outcrops. So maybe the map.
Oh, okay. No, I don't really have a good map, but I can do something very easy. Let me.
I think it might have been that map that kind of looked like the shape of Texas to the coast, but you had colorized kind of paralleling the coast.
Yeah, the
inland.
train of the Catahoula there. Let me show you where this is. Let me. Can I stop sharing? I don't really have.
Yeah, I'll hit. Okay, you're stopped.
There you go. See, here. This will help you find it. It's very easy. Okay, so here it is. Let me share my screen. You can see this now, right?
Yeah, we could. Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so this is how you get to that outcrop. Okay, so this is Highway 83. This is the Walmart Supercenter in Rio Grande City. If you get there, you passed it already. The main outcrop is at the intersection of Hidalgo and Tampico streets. It's right there. This is where the outcrop is. So from Highway 83, you take North Hidalgo Avenue, and it takes you right there, right? In fact, there is a, let me see. I thought there was a tire place here that I always use as reference, right? But
It's
anyway,
kind of the right of way, not
What's
private property. It's right of way.
yeah, no, you just park there. There's no fence. There's nothing. It's right there.
Perfect.
Yeah, very easy access. So on Highway 83, let me zoom out again so you know where we are. The first outcrop with the Goliath on top is somewhere out here, right? Just a short distance. This one is right there, right? Right there. Very easy access.
I think people are used to seeing us out there because I've been there more than once, and they kind of grin and smile and wave at you. They don't think anything of you being there looking over the outcrop.
Correct. In fact, that outcrop where you have the cross, right? The Holy Cross somewhere out here. Before you get there, you drive by the highway and you see that white ash right there. It's not as wide as the one I show you, but it's the same deposit, which for many years was called a sandstone deposit. It's not a sandstone, it's a volcanic ash. Okay, so that's kind of how you get there.
And I found the link for your book, so I put that in chat here in WebEx and on Facebook.
All right.
Okay, are there any other questions?
I want to congratulate Dr. Gonzalez. He's the new Jefe, it seems, right? At UTRGV.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Congratulations. Your workload just went up.
It should be more like condolences, Wendy, but
I know.
go ahead.
No, smiling big. Video camera's off though, so you have to believe me.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you
Sounds
so much
awesome.
for joining us this evening, and we always appreciate it, enjoying your talks, and looking forward to seeing you again maybe this fall. We can arrange a field trip.
Yes, for sure. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
Please say hi to Rosa.
Yeah, and say hi to Russell for me.
Okay, I will.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right. We're going to take a couple of minutes to regroup here, and we're going to go ahead and go into the business meeting.
Somebody said that's the best presentation they've heard. Wow, great. Sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Yes.
Yeah, we got a lot of
Just
comments
Just
like
wait
that
till
on
you get
Facebook
to go
too.
see it in person.
Yes. Lots of positive comments, and like I say, it's always good to see him. All right, let's go ahead and start our business part of the meeting at 7:46. I'm going to go ahead. We can count 45 minutes or 0.75 of an hour for for the meeting, because let's see, it started at 6:30, so yeah, 0.75 for our advanced training time for the
I think you got
program.
the math wrong, don't you?
Oh yeah, that's why I was sitting here thinking, wait a second, that's 45 minutes. So
Do we have an hour and 1.25?
yes, well, yeah, 1.25. Thank you very much for straightening me out. And I don't know, I made a note. I don't think he joined us this evening, but there are a couple of people who are interested in meeting us at one of our meetings, and we're going to try and arrange for them to get to join us. And one of them is Ernesto Garcia Ortega. He's with Texas Parks and Wildlife. He is over at Estero now, and he has taken the position that Tony Henahan had. So I haven't got to meet him in person, but I've talked to him several times, and he is very supportive of our group, and so would like to meet us and get to know us and what he can do for us. So we'll be introducing you to him. And then also there's a gentleman, Hudson DeYo. He is also with UTRGV. He is involved with the Native Plant Center, and I think Tony mentioned it. It may have just been at our board meeting rather than the last regular meeting. Tony, do you have a minute? Do you want to speak to what's going on with the Native Plant Center?
Yes, the Native Plant Center is gone from South Padre. The county, Cameron County, took it over, and so we have a website. We have one website, and that's it. We're looking for, I guess, to be able to work with all the different nature centers in the valley, and Dr. Hudson DeYo is ramrodding that. And it's, I mean, we're homeless right now, so, and we need some volunteers to be on the board, because there's like 3 of us or 4 of us, and it's, I don't know, it's a tough situation right now. So if anybody wants to volunteer, they can contact me or Dr. DeYo.
And we do have Dr. Yo's contact information. Susan has that, and I've got his email too. So we welcome that. That it would be a volunteer opportunity for somebody to serve on that board. Okay, the treasurer's report. I think Gail is here. That was sent out. And if anybody has any questions for Gail, you might speak up. And otherwise, if you haven't had a chance to look it over yet and do see something after the fact, you can always contact her with questions. And if there are no questions, then we will file it for audit. And I do want to mention that this month is considered the last month for being current on paying your dues, and which are I think $15 for the year. If you were in the class this year, your class fee included the dues, so you don't have to pay a separate dues if you're in the 22 class. And the form that you can either print out and mail in is online, or you can pay online with a credit card or debit card. And so those are available options to you. And Gail, did you have anything else to report? She's saying, it looks like she's saying no.
I put my information in chat, so if someone needs to talk to me about something, if they're wondering where they are with their payments or whatever, then they can certainly email me. But pay by email or pay online, or you can mail it in.
All right, thank you. Yeah, she put her email on there if you have questions, and Joseph put the link to the online payments and stuff in the chat room too. So thank you very much. Minutes of the last meeting were attached, and if you have any questions on those, I looked them over and read them over and didn't see anything that caught my attention or rose any questions for me. And but if anybody notices something, maybe somebody's name misspelled or something like that, you can always bring that to our attention, and we'll make any needed corrections if we got a date wrong or something like that. We appreciate your input and feedback on that, and otherwise we'll accept the minutes as printed. Okay, committee reports, membership. I see Ronnie, he's over there ready to give us a report. Thank you.
And I'm muted. Now I'm not muted. Hi, everybody. I swear I heard myself talking. Hope you all are doing well. Really quickly, going over my committee's report. Let's see. I'm going to keep this guy. No, I guess I will keep it like this. I just don't want to lose track of where I'm at because I kind of changed a few things just to, I guess, spice things up. So a quick overview of February, last month, and kind of moving into this month, we have 117 hours entry eligible members, right? There's an uptick of 2 members that we were able to kind of like recoup and bring back into the fold. So now we have 91 active members and 26 in training from previous classes. So our numbers are growing. And that's great stuff. When it comes to our members' activities, we had 52 unique members logging in service or AT hours through 27 different opportunities. I am finally getting a little bit better at exporting data and kind of sifting through it. It's not super pretty just yet, but I can report that when I look at it, we can see that those 91 active members, 43 unique members out of that number logged in volunteer hours. So almost about 50% of our members, our active members, are volunteering, or at least reporting their volunteering and getting their hours approved. So that's that it's a nice increase. And 36 unique members have logged AT hours for their personal growth. What that means in terms of actual hours and then our impact, our monetary impact, 549.75 total hours were approved. And you can see there that our initial trainees logged in 36.25 hours. So even our newest members are showing a nice amount of activity. And that impact then is totals to about $15,689, almost $16,000 of impact based off of our collaborative, my goodness, I can't think of the word I want. Our collective effort. Thank you. Wasn't happening. 112.75 total AT hours approved. And you can see there that our initial trainees are also taking part in AT opportunities. So that's all great stuff. And so again, just kind of digging down a little bit on that data, 259 adults and 154 youth were impacted directly through efforts from the chapter. This is just to kind of show you again with that, how those break down in terms of the AT, what it looks like we're seeing. We see that happening mostly in our chapter meetings like tonight's, though there are others, so that's nice. And then one thing I'd like to point out over here on the right-hand side for the volunteer service entries, there's 212, but there's actually a nice increase in the number of entries for Estero. So that's nice. Before Benson was seeing the bulk of activity, but now it looks like Estero is starting to see a little bit more activity. And again, chapter business is taking up a bulk of it, and that's really because we have our training classes, you know, so that a lot of people are working together to get those going successfully. So I can anticipate that kind of shifting once April comes around and our classes have ended and our members have graduated, or new trainees have graduated. So lastly, again, just was kind of mentioned, it does impact our committee. The dues are due. You know, there's multiple ways to be able to pay them. Please find the one that is, you know, best suited for you and do so. I was going to do a quick check where I was going to like quiz everyone on hours entries, but I'll spare you. And I'd rather celebrate some awards than give people a test. But, you know, just be double checking your entries. You know, always make sure to look over descriptions and kind of double check it so that you help us on the approval side. Because again, you all know more about the opportunity than we do, and no reason to increase the number of inbox entries that you have. So thanks again for the time, and if there are any questions, let me know, but that's our big stuff for the membership committee.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We always enjoy seeing those numbers and what our volunteering means to our partners too. So Anne's not here tonight. She was not sure she would make it. I did talk to her earlier today. She's had a little setback after her surgery and wound up in the hospital for a few days, but she is back home, but not feeling too chipper. So she's going to be taking it kind of slow and easy. And we had talked about the possibility of committee meeting after our general meeting tonight, but she asked for us to postpone that for a week in the hopes that she'll be feeling better. So we'll look at that education committee meeting for maybe next week one day. The information to note is the class graduation is April 12th at Rio Grande State Park, and we'll be getting out some more details, and that's what the education committee is going to meet to finalize those plans for the graduation event. So I think what is tomorrow night the last class? Yep,
Yes.
that's the last class. So they'll be graduating before you know it. And thank you all for participating and hanging in there and going on these field trips. And it's a lot of work, and so we appreciate you hanging in there, especially during these last couple of years with COVID. It's been a challenge at times. So thank you so much. Were there any questions that I might be able to answer about that, about the education committee, or? Okay, otherwise we'll see some of you in class tomorrow night.
Yeah, one quick thing, Donna, too, is just I guess if there are any mentors, you know, if there are any questions about hours entries, right? If anything pops up, you know, just you know, reach out if there's anything that's needed. You know, our members, our trainees are getting really close to graduation, so you know, it's kind of a little bit of all hands on deck just to make sure that they are, you know, hitting the requirements. When I looked at things, we actually have 3 that are ready to go. Like they have met their graduation requirements. So we'll be doing another round to help all others complete everything too. And they're all really close. So any little bit of help is appreciated.
All right, well, thank you. And River, do you have information on awards and recognitions?
Yes, I do, but Ronnie has a slide that he's going to share with everyone for me. Thank you, Ronnie.
All right.
Yeah, 1 second, River. There's a bunch of things open. Okay, I'm getting there. Woo! I think I got it. Yes. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Perfect.
River, were you going to make some comments about that? It says Janie McGee has initially certified, which goes to show we're really working with some of these people from the earlier classes to be sure they get certified, especially those that step forward and say, you know, life got in the way, but I'm ready to get back in. And how do I make this happen? And we're going to work with you. So congratulations, Janie.
Yes, that's one of the awards. There were 6 recertifications, and those are, oh, there they are. Okay. I thought you were going to stay on Janie. Anyway, there are the names. You can see them. So we are getting people recertifying, and many are close. So check your hours. And then we also have the 250-hour milestone, and
Hey,
that's
Mary.
Mary. And we also have a 500-hour milestone.
Right. Well, congratulations.
Congratulations to all. And I do want to say that because I check hours, I did see that there's a couple of trainees who have enough hours to actually initially certify.
Yep.
So that's a
Very
great
good.
thing.
All
Yep.
right.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you,
Thank
Ronnie.
you. Thank you for
Thank you.
keeping up with all that,
Congrats.
River. And I like the little certificate presentations in lieu of our meeting. So thanks, Ronnie, for working on those
Yes.
for us. Okay, Joseph, do you have anything from the communications committee, and you and Anita?
I don't have a written report or screen to show you, but I just looked up our Facebook, the public page. It says we've reached 804 people in the last 28 days, which is up 8%. And post engagements where somebody clicks like or favorites or shares or whatever is up 447%. So I think a lot of that was our last meeting was very popular with the Charles Alexander's parrots. And we had 18 new page likes in the last 28 days. So I think we're getting the word out to a lot more people.
Very good.
And I think that's about all I have since I'm so busy with the class stuff. I don't have much more to report right now.
Except that he's busy with the class stuff.
Hopefully next month. And I like doing keeping the classes going, but I'll be very happy when they're done.
All right. And Anita, did you have anything else to add?
No, other than I want to ensure that the new class members know that they're most welcome to come to the AT events on the weekend of April 8th, 9th, and 10th at the Home and Garden Show. I hope a lot of them take advantage of the presentations, and as soon as we know what those dates and times are, Robert will probably know before any of us, and we'll certainly let everyone know. But I'd like to encourage and also the membership to come and hear the speakers so that we have an audience. But there'll be some good information to go out too. So,
and Robert did ask in the email today, they are still looking for volunteers.
That's right. That's right.
Right. And I would like to encourage, especially those in the new class, if you, the best way to figure out and learn what we do is to go to a booth event, like what we'll be having at the garden show, because you'll be there with the professional booth sitters, and you'll be able to listen to how we interact with the public and what we tell them. And it's just a tremendous learning experience, hands-on. You just kind of sit back and absorb all the information. It's a fun time. So I would encourage anyone that's thinking about it to please come and help with the booth event.
Okay. Thank you, Anita. And Elizabeth, did you have a comment?
Yes. Just so you all know too that Anita and Joseph and I have started working with John Brush on trying to set up a training event and publicity about the upcoming City Nature Challenge. So, stay tuned. stay tuned in. We're hoping to have a training event at Keep Mazatlan, and we'll get you the date and times on that soon. And I know Anita will be working on lots of publicity like she usually does, but just wanted to throw that out there so you'd be aware.
That
All
City
right.
Nature Challenge is the last 3 days of April, and it's the end of April. There's 4 days of a BioBlitz where you go out and photograph and upload to iNaturalist. There's 4 days of that, and then you have 4 or 5 days in the first week of May to finish up uploading. But just keep it on your calendar, the last week of April.
All right. Thank you. And we probably do not have any other announcements from our state program rep, Kathy Chon, except she did let us know they were near Greece now. So that's why she's not joining us. They're on their little cruise having a good time, I'm hoping. So we wish her the best. Okay, Advanced Training Director, I know Elizabeth's been real good at forwarding out any AT opportunities. And keep in mind all those TMN Tuesdays, whether you watch them in person or you can actually use those recorded sessions that you can use for advanced training. So that's the one exception is TMN Tuesdays recordings can be used for AT. They don't have to be live. And the next one's April 12th at noon. Did you have anything else, Elizabeth?
Yes. Benson and Quinta Mazatlan and Estero Llano Grande all have live TMN, not TMN, AT type events. Some of them are night bike, some of them are other guided walks or tram rides that are guided. So if you're interested in attending things at any of those places, look on their pages. Unfortunately, don't get that stuff, but it's findable. I did share, or Joseph helped me share, about an upcoming talk by Chris Taylor at Quinta Mazatlan. They used to do the Thursday night talks. They're starting those back up again. But do, if you want to try something different, try a night hike. They're pretty interesting. Anyway, there's more and more things in person that are opening up, as well as still the online events. If I hear about them, I share them.
Thank you. Okay, Susan, do you want to talk about volunteer service projects or hours?
I do, but before I forget it, I have a question to ask. Relating to advanced training hours, the state meeting that we can rewatch those various breakout sessions, and it was until April 1st, I believe. But because they were down for a couple of weeks, there was some discussion about maybe having an extension of that. Donna, did you know anything about that at your presidency?
They did not indicate there would be an extension, but it is through the end of April.
Through the end of April. Okay, thanks.
Yes.
I couldn't remember. Okay, I think you covered everything that I had until yesterday. And the email from Robert about the home show has already been mentioned. The other thing that's new on my horizon is Estero Llano is looking for volunteers to fill bird feeders, etc., until the end of April. And I have some dates and times that I will get out in an email for anybody who's interested in that.
Okay.
And Javier will be the contact person.
All right. And I will be setting up a booth on at Quinta Mazatlan for their Monarch Fest. The setup is Friday, but I don't think that'll take much, and I won't need help with that because I'll just have the tablecloth and materials to set out. But it'll be conducted Saturday, April 2nd from 9 to 2, and I will need some volunteers for that booth. And I'm looking at some little activity, a coloring page or something to share with people that come by, plus information about our chapter and all. So Y'all know my email. I send stuff out all the time. If not, I'm on the list. But my email is in the minutes. My email and my telephone number are in the minutes if you need to look that up. But I will send out a separate call also for volunteers. And Robert, are you here? Did you want to say anything else about the Home and Garden Show?
Yes, I am here. Okay, so I did send out an email today to list the dates of the show itself, which is 8th, 9th, and 10th, which is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Hours being Friday 2 to 6 p.m. That's 4 hours. 10 to 6 p.m. on Saturday. That's the longest day. And then Sunday from 11 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. And shortly after that, we'll take down what we set up. Setup day will be on Wednesday, and that'll be from 11 to 6 p.m. We do have Wednesday and Thursday and the morning Friday, but I think Wednesday will be sufficient. So if you do have plants that you have potted, make sure to maintain them at your homes till then. And that day on Wednesday, I will ask you to take them to the show themselves. That's when we're able to drive in with our vehicles to offload anything that we have. If you need help in transporting them, let me know later, and we'll make arrangements. Okay, our main purpose for participating in the show, of course, is to promote the use of native plants in our gardens. And I think, I'm sorry, I do know we have 3 members that have volunteered their time, which is Anita Westervelt, Dr. Grant and his wife, I can't remember her name right now, and Mary Hochkowski, who will all be
Ina Grant.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. And they will be having presentations, like Anita mentioned, during the show, the 3 days. We don't have a schedule for them yet. When they do make their presentations, or when they do give us a schedule, I'll send it out. Members, again, you are encouraged to participate, lend support to these people that are volunteering their time to do this for us. And again, it could be possibly used for AT hours. Let's see, what else? I do have 10 or 12 people that have contacted me already today alone. We're probably going to require 6 individuals to man the post, the booth, throughout the days that we are doing this. Okay, if you do have potted plants that you have been taken out of your garden, send a list to Anita or myself so Anita can prepare blurb sheets for them. Thank you, Anita, for doing that for us. And I think that's it. Any questions from anybody?
Okay. And I will also mention at the Monarch Fest, if you volunteer, you get in free, but they also usually offer speakers there a couple of days each on that afternoon. So you'd have a chance for AT if you can work it into your schedule or there, you can take something. So that's a good opportunity for AT in addition to some volunteer hours. And I'll send out a separate request for volunteers for that. And other than that, I think the only other thing was the virtual volunteer fair coming up May 4th and 5th. And that's just put on your calendar, and I'm sure we'll be getting more information about that. Did anyone else have any other business to discuss or anything that I haven't mentioned yet? Go ahead, Elizabeth. We can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I have a very quick question. I would like to see the Facebook presentations, and I don't know where to find it. Could someone send an email to let us know what it is? And that's what I'd raise my hand for.
Yep. I'll send it to all the students. So you guys, if you aren't familiar yet, you'll be able to find all the old ones.
Okay. All right. Go ahead,
Elizabeth, we didn't hear what you said.
Okay. Yeah. As some of you know, our chapter has a speakers bureau, and for several years there, we had a really active programs, once a month presentations at the McAllen Public Library and other places too. And they have just recently, everything shut down then. They have just recently, they have a new person contacted me, and Sylvia and Rick are going to do a presentation in June on native plant gardening. I'll send out the details about that, and that too would be AT. But hopefully we can get back into that once a month presentations there if COVID stays better. So I'll keep you abreast on that. And any of the new people, if you have skills or expertise that you would like to share, and be part of our speakers bureau, please send me an email. Let me know what that might be. Thank you.
All right. And with that, I'll just announce that on April 18th, our meeting is going to be on the night sky by Jennifer Rectorick. And May 16th, Rosanna Baca Garza with the UTRGV CHAPS program is going to talk about their new project, which is probably the subject of that book that they talked about, because she had talked to me about it way back probably 2 years ago or so. And so I think that's probably what her program is going to encompass, that information.
And then hopefully in June, Alicia will do a backyard birding thing.
Okay, yes.
Hey, Donna, this is Wendy, and I actually talked to Rosanna earlier this week. We did a geology conference, and she's got, in addition to discussing that book, they have a new product out that interacts with your smartphone. So if you guys have smartphones, it might be useful to have available during the meeting. And it has a poster, and it's about arrowheads and tips and things like that as well.
Is it that interactive one?
Yes. So part of that, I think she said, was going to be presented here with us. So.
All right, that's good news. Yeah, I'd seen their prototype of that at one time, and
it's neat.
How they were getting it set up. Yeah, it's really interesting. Okay, unless there's any other comments or other business to bring up, I'm looking for a show of hands. I don't see anybody jumping up and down saying they want to stay longer. So I have it at 8:18, and we started our business meeting at 7:45. So that's right at a half hour or 0.50 minutes for chapter business. So with that, I'll call the meeting adjourned. And thank you, everyone, for participating.
Take care, everybody.
Yes. And those that were talking about the education committee, we will reschedule that. We'll touch base with Ann and see if she's able to get that rescheduled for next week. And if not, I told her, send me the information on things that needs to get done, and we'll get our heads together and take care of it. So y'all keep her in your thoughts and prayers, and thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.